You know what? No, I didn't take anything positive out of it yesterday. It was awful. I wouldn't keep him. You know, I've seen enough of Zach Wilson. These guys aren't picking the right players. They're not doing a good job of coaching. It's evident. I mean, you got to look and see if you have an eye about football at all. You see things are haywire. It's too crazy. They need to fix it, and that's getting rid of a lot of people and bringing new ones in. I just think for this fan, they need to make major changes from top to bottom.
What's interesting there is he said we need to fix it and get rid of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Shannon, do you agree with Namath?
I do. I don't think Zach Wilson is the answer. I don't believe his teammates believe in him. And I think the thing is when former players come out so harshly against their team, it hits different because it's more personal to them than just the casual, than the fan that buys the paraphernalia and comes to the game Saturday. You know this. It hurts you to see the Colts struggle like they've struggled over the last couple of years. You look at the Jets, the last 2 weeks, they're 3 of 24 on third down. They're dead last in third down percentage, points scored, total offense, and passing offense. That's the quarterback. And he says, Robert Saleh says he's the unquestioned. Well, then what is the question that you're asking? If he's the unquestioned, because I have serious questions. If Zach Wilson is the answer, I question the questions in which you're asking me. Because he's not it. I've seen enough. This is not one game. This is a large sample size of continuous bad play. And I know everybody jumped back on the bandwagon after week 1 when he came in for Aaron Rodgers after that tough injury that Aaron suffered. But every team is not going to give you short fields by turning the ball over 4 times. Josh Allen played horrible. He was their best player, not Zach Wilson. Josh Allen was the Jets' best player opening week. I agree with Joe. And quarterbacks get you hired, they'll also get you fired. And I'm afraid that Robert Saleh is trending in the wrong direction.
Right.
Because I don't believe those players in the locker room. Jeff, you've been in locker rooms, and you know guys that can play. You can fool the media, you can fool the fans, but you can't fool players in that locker room because they know to a T what players can play.
Well, I would make the argument it's hard to fool the media. And let me tell you why it's hard to fool the media.
Well, you play that bad.
Because the media gets it half the time, if not more than half the time, from the locker room. Real people in the media, we ain't trolling.
Right.
We literally are talking to people who are close and connected, and they give us the level of expertise. I do that every day during the NFL season on first thing. Damn it, I ain't play no damn football, Jeff Saturday. Shannon Sharpe, never thought about it. I look at football players and thank God every day none of them ever hit me, okay? But the bottom line is this. I know what I'm seeing because y'all tell me what I'm seeing. And when you look at what's transpiring with Zach Wilson, he's just playing like hot garbage. But more importantly than that, he seems to be immature. Somebody that really hasn't maturated to the position and all the responsibilities that come with it. And Jeff Saturday, here's where it hits home for me with Robert Saleh. I think he's making a huge mistake in being as defiant in his support of Zach Wilson as he is. Because even though the guys inside the locker room can respect it on one hand, on the other hand, they're looking at him and they're saying, come on, dude. Come on now. I mean, this brother is hurting us. You do not have a lot of people in the Jets locker room. They showed us this last year that have a lot of faith in Zach Wilson. They just don't. And so as a coach, it's one thing to support him, but you know what I'm saying when you throw that little extra sauce on it? And I know that's a bad analogy for me of all people to use after that first pitch I threw. But you know when you throw a little extra sauce on it, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just something that you just shouldn't do when it comes to a talent that is performing to the degree that Zach Wilson is performing. I think Saleh is hurting himself, and I think that's going to end him. If he doesn't stop, they're going to run him out of New York because the fans are going to turn against him because they already is against Zach Wilson.
All right, let me say this. From the Zach Wilson perspective, the Jets did everything they could to fix this problem. Joe Douglas, they went and got Aaron Rodgers. Make no mistake, they didn't go into the season believing that Zach Wilson was going to be their quarterback. So 4 plays in, he gets, a catastrophic Achilles injury, so he's out for the year. So they fall back to Zach Wilson. They had moved on from Zach Wilson, right? They had understood what was happening. To Shannon's point, the sample size was there, right? They understood what was going to be there, so they had moved on. When you get into the situation that they're in now, Saleh is doing the only thing he can. There's nowhere really to go, guys. Like you're in your locker room, you're trying to encourage these guys to play their absolute best. But let's not turn everything to just Zach Wilson. The defense that had 4 turnovers, a punt return for a touchdown, they've had 1 sack and 0 turnovers the next 2 games. Like, that's not good enough. If you're talking about being the type of defense that they talked about preseason, we're going to be a historic type defense. We're going to do all these things. Somebody has to pick up the load. From a run perspective, they haven't been able to run the ball. So now you're putting more pressure on Zach Wilson. Do I believe that Zach Wilson can win games for the Jets? I do not. But to act like that you have to have this top down, you're going to clean out Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh because you put all your eggs in the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes. You won, but unfortunately you lost to injury. Listen, I played on a team in Indianapolis for a number of years. We were one of the best offenses in the history of the NFL. When we lost Peyton Manning, we won 2 games. But let me tell you something. Bill Polian, Tom Moore, every offensive coach that we had understood if Peyton wasn't playing, we weren't winning. There's no difference for what the Jets did and that was their plan. But at this point, there's nowhere really else to go other than Zach Wilson, and you have to keep these guys coming in. The bottom line for Saleh is keep these young players together for the rest of the season and move on to unless they move on from Zach Wilson. But to act like they all need to be canned, I get the frustration from Joe Namath. I get it. Listen, I pull for the Colts the same way he pulls for his Jets. But at the end of the day, they had done the right things. Unfortunately, it didn't work out.
Go ahead, Shannon.
I think the thing is when you say their defense needs to be better, I don't care how great your defense is. If you can constantly put them out there 3 and out, they will break down. And that was the thing when with the 2000 Ravens. Yes, we went 5 games without scoring a touchdown. We won 3 of those games. We had to change our philosophy. Give us a 10. Get the 10. Can you get the 10 early? And here, you said something else. You're right. Zach Wilson was that old car. We went and got a newer model. It wasn't a new car, but it was a newer model than the car that we had in an older version. But it was more reliable than Zach Wilson. And unfortunately, we had an accident in the car that we got. Right. Now we got to go back to a car that we know going to break down. We know going to put us downside the road if it even cranks to go to work in the morning.
Well, let me say this to both of y'all, okay? Because, Jeff, I'm going to push back on you respectfully a little bit on a point that you made. First of all, you did go out and get Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
But let's reflect on last season for a second. You used 4 different quarterbacks.
Yes.
Well, why didn't you have a better backup plan? I'm talking about if Aaron Rodgers were to get hurt. He is 39 to 40 years of age. We are talking about a violent sport like football. You can't assume that he's going to stay healthy the entire season. So that's number one. Number two, we saw the San Francisco 49ers lose 4 quarterbacks in a season. Right. We saw them line up for an NFC championship game, and they didn't even have a quarterback behind center. So we know that. But let me throw this by y'all, because, Shannon, this is going to tickle you to death. Jeff, Saturday, you're going to try to be as serious and as neutral as you possibly can be. My brother, you're going to laugh about this, too. The number 1 bust at the quarterback position in NFL history is arguably Jamarcus Russell.
Correct.
Okay? Former number 1 overall pick by the Raiders. Remember that? Yep. Let me compare him over 25 career games to Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, 8-16. Jamarcus Russell, 7-15. Quarterback rating, Zach, 69.2. Jamarcus Russell, 68. TD to interception ratio, 17 touchdowns, 22 interceptions. Jamarcus Russell, 17 touchdowns, 18 interceptions. This brother, Zach Wilson, is comparable to Jamarcus Russell. Mm-hmm. This is how serious this has gotten. And when you bring up the fact that you don't want to just fire everybody, we're not talking about based on talent, Jeff Saturday. Let me be very, very clear about that. We might be inclined to give up on Zach Wilson. Certainly not anybody else. And you're looking at Saleh, you're not trying to give up on him. What we're saying to him is that a fan base matters. I'm telling you from the this is media here. A fan base matters. And when you spit in their face, figuratively speaking, and you tell them it's raining, you ultimately are going to tick them off. So when you stand in front of the cameras, what I'm saying to Robert Saleh, I believe in you. You're a defensive-minded coach. You came from San Francisco. Your credentials are impeccable. I don't think you've done a bad job with the Jets. Their defense is elite. We get all of that. But you can't come up in front of the cameras, Shannon, and in front of the microphones and tell people, Zach is my guy. Really? They're going to go like this. Something wrong with you. And you might need to go someplace else because we don't like that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
I appreciate the fan base. You also are trying to hold together the 53 in your locker room. And he's seeing issues with Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, right? Michael Carter had an issue. So Sauce Gardner had an issue. So he's trying, and I get what you're saying with the fans. He's trying to make sure this youthful team that he knows he can build the organization with stays together. So he's trying to keep it in-house. It is a very tight line for him to balance. Listen, there ain't no win. They went all in, and it didn't work out. It's an ugly situation right now.
Fixing it is getting rid of a lot of people. Let's play a little game of fair or foul, Pat McAfee. Are Namath's comments fair or foul?
Well, I think they're fair, and I think they've even admitted that it is fair because if you look at what they did this past offseason whenever they go and get Aaron Rodgers. You remember Woody Johnson hopped on his big-ass plane, flew over to Malibu, met with Aaron and said, hey, we need you as a quarterback. I think Douglas knew that. I think Saleh knew that. They went all in on getting Aaron. Then they bring in Randall Cobb. They bring in Alan Lazard. Hackett, the offensive coordinator, was maybe hired to lure Aaron Rodgers to New York if things were to go bad in Green Bay. And then 4 plays into their season, poof, the entire storyline of the offseason, the entire focal point of their entire team. If you watch Hard Knocks, the defensive coordinator saying, hey, we're going to be in every single game this year because Aaron Rodgers is here. Robert Saleh looked at Aaron Rodgers during one practice on Hard Knocks and said, that man is beautiful. So everything they were building towards was Aaron Rodgers. So I think it's fair that he said they needed new pieces. It's also fair that the Jets tried to do the new piece. The new piece just had an Achilles torn 4 plays in. I think it's just incredibly unfortunate. They didn't have a backup plan, and Zach Wilson not panning out, boys.
I agree with you, Mac. I believe it's fair. And I don't know if you play for any other team other than the Colts, but it hurts you more to see them struggle. It hurts you more when they lose and you don't see a sun on the horizon. Zach Wilson, I'm not saying that Zach Wilson can't go somewhere else and have a serviceable career. I just do not believe it's going to be in New York. It's like a relationship. Just because me and my partner, we break up, that doesn't mean she's a bad person. That just means we weren't right for each other. So she goes on, finds happiness. I go on and find happiness. It's just not, we couldn't be happy together. Maybe the Jets and Zach Wilson can't be happy together, but he cannot play in New York. I don't believe, and you've been in locker rooms, Mac, players believed, I got to believe that I can win with you under center. I got to believe that Pat Mac is going to get this ball off and he's backed up and he's not going to fumble it and he's not going to get it blocked. Belief is everything in the locker room because without it, I've got nothing.
Especially from your quarterback or in your quarterback. If you don't believe in him,
it's
everything is ultimately going to crumble, which is a subject that I'll bring up later, but we're not the second. But here's the deal when it comes to Pat McAfee. At the end of the day, don't worry about it. It's coming. But in terms of the Jets, Joe Namath might have sounded a bit extreme when he's talking about cleaning house. That's a bit extreme. But we are talking about 2 people. We're talking about a quarterback who the fan base is completely giving up on. They're not going to give any chance to. And the players in the locker room don't necessarily trust him in Zach Wilson. And we're talking about a coach that is a bit too vehement in his support of Zach Wilson. That has to stop. You don't have to excoriate him. You don't have to disrespect him. You don't have to do all of that. But what you can't do is look into the cameras and lie to people right to their face. They know you're lying. I believe in him. He is our quarterback. We believe in him. Except, no, they don't. They don't.
Stephen,
and you got to stop that.
What is he supposed to say?
You know something?
He has to, yeah.
He has to support him publicly.
Time. Does anybody here love Bill Parcells? Does anybody love Bill Parcells? Yeah. Now, Bill Parcells, it wasn't talking about a quarterback one time. He went a bit too far. Because when they asked him about Terry Glenn one time, he said, she's okay.
Right.
That's exactly what he said.
Right.
Highly insulting. Highly insulting. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is we've seen him on the sideline cussing out Phil Simms. We've seen him get him Jeff Hostetler's face. We didn't see him do that with LT. No need to do that. But the bottom line is you've seen him do stuff. You don't have to. You don't have to insult them. You don't have to insult the player. But what you don't do is sit in front of everybody's face and lie like you're feeling something you don't feel. That is a bad mistake on Salah's part.
Let me go here. Mac, let me ask you this. Do we save one to lose 52? That's the question that Robert Saleh has to ask. Do you save Zach Wilson and then lose your entire locker room? What do you do, Mac? Because that's where you're headed.
Yeah, and I think it's a fascinating question. Yeah, and also, if you look back at what happened in Seattle and I think in Jacksonville, too, before they kind of imploded the entire thing, always go with the quarterback instead of the rest of the team. When in this case, the team is much better than the quarterback, obviously. I think Saleh just has to say that he believes in Zach Wilson so that Zach Wilson can have some sort of confidence. Because if you remember last year, when Zach wasn't playing, that Jets fan base and team, they were wearing shirts for the backup quarterback, Mike White. This is our guy. Chanting Mike White in the locker room in Zach Wilson's face pretty much. Then Zach Wilson gets on the field later in the season. All of New York boos him. Streveler goes in, Canadian Football League legend. They cheer for him. I mean, this kid, to your point, Shannon, and you, Steven, his run in New York has been an awful one, and I don't think it's getting any better anytime soon.
By the way,
and if they keep losing the way they're losing, it's going to get loud, Steven.
And you know why it got worse for him, Pat? Because he doesn't seem like he cares. You listen, Garrett Wilson makes a tremendous move on Trayvon Diggs in week 2, okay? And he's wide open in the left corner of the end zone. Zach Wilson misses him, and then he's on the sidelines laughing. Let me tell you something right now.
Yeah.
You going up against Dallas's defense, those opportunities are slim to none that are coming your way. And when you miss an opportunity like that, the New York Jets fans are looking at you and they're saying, okay, does this dude, is he really all in? Is he really going all out? I'm not questioning his effort, but I am questioning his attitude.